We have a quorum, and it's the appointed time. I call the meeting to order. There are 5 items on today's agenda. For the first 3, they were from the agenda on the last meeting. And for the 4th and the 5th one, they were on the agenda dated the 29th of October last year. Let me remind members that if there is direct or indirect pecuniary interest involved in any of the agenda items, members, please disclose the nature of the interest in accordance with Rule 83A of ROP. And I'd like to draw your attention to ROP Rule 84 in relation to voting in items that have a direct pecuniary interest with you. Item 1 is Head 703 Buildings, Recreation, Culture and Amenities, Mixed Amenity Packages 56RG, Government Complex in Area 14, Siu Lun, Tuen Mun. Members are invited to upgrade 56RG to Cat A at an estimated cost of 1,250.7 million in money of the day prices. On the 11th of April last year, the HAP was consulted. Members did not object to the item being discussed in the PWSC. We have with us from the HAB, ASD, HAD, and LCSD, and the Immigration Department, SWD, and Hong Kong Post. Who is to take us through the paper? Mr. Choi, LCSD, Assistant Director. Thank you. In relation to Area 14 Government Complex, Siu Lun, Tuen Mun, it's actually one of the infrastructure projects left by the Municipal Services Council. This is near Castle Peak Road at Siu Lun Street. It includes a sports center of our department, a community hall of the HAD, and government facilities of Immigration Post, Hong Kong Post, and SWD. The LCSD, starting from 2012, consulted Tuen Mun District Council on the conceptual plan, and in 2014 we consulted the HA panel. We have also got their support, and that's why we submit this item for discussion in this subcommittee. Now I open the floor for discussion. Members who have indicated to speak are Alice Mack and Dr. Kokaki. Ms. Mack, thank you. We support this item because in this district, that is my constituency, we would like to have these facilities, and we would like the project to start as soon as possible. I'd like to ask if there is any chance for this project to be expedited, because it's supposed to be completed in June 2018. And under Hong Kong PSG, Tuen Mun should have 8 sports centers. Currently, there are only 4, so it still falls short with this project. Are there any plans for the LCSD to build more sports centers in Tuen Mun? Deputy Director. Let me first answer the 3 outstanding sports centers in Tuen Mun. We have actually earmarked 2 sites in areas 4 and 54 to build sports centers. we will, of course, consult the district council. Who is to answer about expedition of the project? Director for ASD. Well, with funding approval, we will start the tender exercise as soon as possible. If everything goes smoothly, in August of this year, we will be able to start works. The project includes a site formation and piling. There are schools nearby and residential blocks nearby. So we need to liaise with neighboring schools to mitigate noise impact. Say, for example, the timing of our works. We have set aside 42 months for the project. If it can start in August, so we will be able to complete it in September 2019. Alice Mack. Well, in relation to the SWD, the site or field office, if there is a relocation, how will you inform the residents? Because very often I come across residents who don't know where to go to the field office of the SWD and where it's moved to. SWD is now the butterfly social security field units. When we move, we will send letters to service users, and we will also through relevant unit to inform residents. We only moving to somewhere nearby, is within 1,000 meters of the original field unit. Ms. Mack, I would like to ask, just now the LCSD said that you know that there are 3 outstanding ones and there are 2 planned, Area 4 and 54. What about the outstanding, the last one? We'll continue to identify suitable sites. Are there any plans to meet the target? We will consult the district council because we will start the project once we've got the support from the district council. Dr. Kwakaki, to be followed by Mr. Leung Chi Chang. Of course, I support it. For residents in Tuen Mun, it's very difficult for them because they've been waiting for over 10 years. The Municipal Services Council was disbanded a long time. The regional Municipal Services Council was disbanded a long time ago. However, we spend time here to talk about White Elephant projects, say for example Hong Kong-Macau Bridge and the Hang Yuen Wai Lian Tang border control facilities. But they do not benefit residents. Maybe the administration think that they don't have to pay attention to the grassroots. They only have to care for the business sector. They've been waiting for 20 years. But they have to make way for the White Elephant projects. I don't know whether you can answer me. It seems that there is a serious problem with the financial physical discipline of the administration, especially when Siu Lun has taken office. They have put themselves at the opposite side of people. I hope that this will be endorsed as soon as possible. The administration should do better for projects that are non-controversial and of a certain degree of urgency. They should be given priority in the Finance Committee for them to be implemented as soon as possible. Just now there was a question. Just now it was said that Tuen Mun DC would be consulted. Yesterday I heard from the Tuen Mun DC that they were waiting for Area 4 and the other one. They've been waiting for many months. Do they have to wait for 42 months before the projects at Area 4 and 54 start? Well, can they start at the same time? Well, in relation to social facilities, of community facilities, of course, I do not object to the Hong Kong Post and the SWD and another department for using this facility. But as you know, that there is also a need for healthcare services. Say, for example, healthcare centers for the elderly and for women. Have they asked the FHB and the D of H whether they would need some space for these facilities in the complex, because these services have been ignored by the administration for many years? First, physical discipline. And for questions 2 and 3, who is to take this? Who is to take them? Mr. Choi. When planning community projects, of course, we will consult the district council and will also liaise with the relevant departments. We have to follow the practiced procedure to implement the projects as soon as possible. And as to whether other departments have been asked to move in, have you done that? That is the D of H and other departments. In relation to the proposed facilities of the complex, of course, we will first and foremost liaise with the district council and other departments to see what facilities will be provided. We have the Immigration Department, SWD, and the Hong Kong Post. Did you ask, and when did you ask? Did the FHB and the D of H say that they don't need any facilities related to healthcare in the complex? Mr. Choi. There is a limitation as to the space provided in this complex. We can only make room for those departments I've mentioned. Mr. Leung Chee-Chung, to be followed by Mr. Tam Yiu Chung. I support this government complex because, nowadays when we build facilities, we should not have them in separate and standalone buildings. Say, sports center for standing on its own, and government department standing on its own. It's quite far away from an LRT station. The light rail train is about 1 kilometer away from an LRT station. And now you have integrated services there. These services are often used by a public, say the Hong Kong Post, some people may drive there to use the service. So what about car parking space? And sometimes, say for sports center, if there is a shortage of car parking facilities, and when there is an event, people will have to drive elsewhere to park their cars. And there is limited space for coaches. Can I hear from the administration when you design the plans? What are you going to do when there is a major event, given the limited number of parking space for coaches and private cars? This is a complex. Now I see that the entrance and exits There is one over the side of the community hall, and the other side is the sports center. What about connectivity of these two entrances?
There is
connectivity on the first floor, and is it the same at the ground floor? On the ground floor, first, accessibility by public transport and whether there are enough parking spaces. Secondly, connectivity between the two centers. Administration. There are about 30 parking spaces provided in the complex. This is to cope with the operation of the complex. It's also for couples who are going to be wedded there. And at Siu Lun sports ground, there are about 19 parking spaces. After the complex is in operation for a while, we'll see whether some of the parking spaces can be made available for the public outside office hours. When there are major events, if organizations need to have loading and loading activities here, we'll see whether the necessary assistance can be given where possible. And we'll also review the need for public transport, whether there can be improvement to facilitate the use of our facilities. What about connectivity between the sports center and the community hall for Home Affairs Department? Yes, Director of ASD. There are two groups. First is the sports centers, and second community hall, and they have separate accesses on the ground floor. And then there is an escalator on the ground floor that can lead to various floors. And then on the first floor, there is a split for the sports center and the community hall. Is there any connection on the ground floor? That's what I heard. Is that correct, Director? Certainly. All right. Mr. Tuen Mun, Chairman, I have just one comment. Residents of Tuen Mun have hoped for the building complex, the government complex, to be completed for a long time, because that would mean more space for them for various activities. On the 11th of April last year, this was discussed at the relevant panel, and July last year it was supposed to come to this subcommittee. So it's a pity that we have dragged on for a few months. It is not just the government's responsibility. LegCo has a role to play. Some members said that it's good to have this kind of projects. Why do we need Lantang and other boundary crossings? Well, society has different needs. We have public infrastructure needs, and for sports and leisure facilities, so on and so forth. And when these papers come to LegCo, I hope that after reasonable discussions, we can approve them so that there will be no further delay and residents can be benefited as soon as possible. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. As a former GC member of Kowloon West, I support this project because there is a great demand for such services in the community, as said by Mr. Tuen Mun. And therefore, I hope that the project can go ahead as soon as possible. It is regrettable that it has suffered such a big slippage. And regarding energy saving and greening and renewable energy, on para 22 of the paper, we see that there will be a solar hot water system and photovoltaic system. I give you my strong support, and I hope that in future projects and government complexes, the ASD can use such facilities more. We should maximize the use of solar energy. Please put it on record. And can the ASD undertake to us that when constructing new government complexes, such facilities should be used more? I think it is an excellent design to use solar energy. And in the community hall, going up and down stage, I'd like to know whether there is barrier-free access. Because this issue was raised for existing community halls. Sometimes it is hard for the disabled or those wheelchair users to go on stage if there is no ramp. If there is just a staircase, well, it is difficult for them. Of course, in this new government complex, I hope there can be concerns for universal access. Mr. Lau, ASD. When it comes to greening, energy savings, and recycled features, we will add these features wherever possible in new items. We have internal guidelines within the government. In public works projects, such facilities should be used where feasible, and to strike a balance will ensure that that will cost no more than 2% of our total project cost. Mr. Wang asked about barrier-free access for the stage. We will build ramps so that wheelchair users can get on stage using their own wheelchairs. Mr. Wang, I welcome the director of ASD's very positive reply, and please put it on record, and I hope that the director can do the same for future government complexes. Please incorporate such a good design. Mr. Ip Kwok Him, to be followed by Mr. Albert Chen. As said by a number of members, I support the construction of the government complex. As regards whether medical and healthcare facilities should be incorporated into this project, I don't believe this is the major concern of the PWSC. Para 22, 23 mention a number of features. I welcome energy conservation and greening features. My question for the ASD is, other than using solar energy for energy conservation, I'd like to know whether you are going to use curtain walls, or because I know that there's been a lot of improvements in other places. Such features can reduce indoor temperature. Have you considered this? And in para 25, it is said that about 10.6 energy savings can be achieved with a payback period of about 4.6 years. Because the additional features cost around $17.5 million. This payback period, about 4.6 years, how does it relate with this $7.5 million of additional cost? 4.6 years is such a short period of time. Is it really possible to do it so soon, given that the additional cost is $17.5 million? The use of curtain walls? Yes, we use glass. For some of the walls, very transparent. So the technology is advanced. It is very light penetrating, and yet it would not absorb too much heat. As for energy saving features, in para 22A to J, we've included various energy saving and recycled features. A to H are energy conservation features to save energy. I to J are recycled features involving solar hot water system and photovoltaic system. Para 25. Says that the payback period is about 4.6 years. This involves the energy conservation features from A to H. The construction cost is about $4 million, as mentioned in para 25. So energy efficient features, $4 million, and payback period 4.6 years. For I and J, the payback period is relatively longer. So this 4.6 years is not about $17.5 million, but for $4 million only, right? Mr. Lau. Mr. Lau confirms this, yes. And what about I and J? For recycled features, we do not have any calculation of its payback period because it is not for energy conservation. Any follow-up? No more from me. Mr. Albert Chen. Thank you. The construction cost is $1.2 billion. I'm a little bit worried about the rapid escalation in costs. The Development Bureau spent $170 billion on public works projects, a record high, making it impossible to control construction costs. And last year, many projects saw a budget overrun of 30 up to or even up to 60%, and it's unimaginable that a government complex like this is going to cost $1.2 billion. I'd like to know the unit cost per square meter, and vertical greening is my constant concern. The current design may not be unacceptable, but we have the feeling that at some time the government was more proactive with the vertical greening. I'd like to know whether there can be any policy guidance for all government departments to say at least 5 to 10% of its area with vertical greening, so that we don't have to argue on this point every time you give us a new design. For Hong Kong, PSG, can there be some standards for vertical greening? For instance, rooftop, a certain percentage of coverage must be green, and also a certain requirement for vertical greening so that we don't have to talk about it every time. And I'm like a human recorder. For communities or facilities such as a community hall, it is a pity that you have not any improvement in the schedule of accommodation. Yes, you may have a few more activity rooms, but still it is not enough. It's good that you have a standalone building. I think if you build one more or two more stories, it will not be a problem. if we can have 3 to 4 more activity rooms or meeting rooms that can accommodate 20 to 30 people for meetings and classes and small-scale activities, I'm sure it will be of great help to the community. Since you have spent $1.2 billion already, why don't you spend a little more to provide more improvement to people's quality of life?
There are lots of organizations that would like to organize interest groups, seminars, activities, dancing, singing, political education. They cannot find a venue to do it. Sometimes we would like to organize training classes for youngsters on political development. We can't find a venue for it. We're very disappointed. Perhaps they do it on purpose, the administration, because they would like to control it. If it's the loyalists, then they can organize whatever class they want, say, for example, FTU. But for the others, it's very difficult for us to find space for these classes. Perhaps they do it on purpose. I once again condemn the administration. They control resources so that smaller district bodies cannot survive. So we're talking about 29,000 square meters, including including those plant rooms, and whether there is vertical greening, whether they have done enough. In the design, we focus on a functional design. We have adopted a no-frill design, and we've also taken into account long-term maintenance and repair requirements. When it comes to vertical greening, it's adopted in this project because of the color is not shown on the plans. If you look at the layout plan on the first to the third floor, you see that there is green. There is a vertical greening, about 50% of the total area. It accounts for 245 square meters. When it comes to vertical greening, there is internal guideline, which clearly states that we have to meet a certain standard when it comes to vertical greening. Can you increase the space or number of activity rooms? But it's not for the ASD, it's for the HAD. Well, we have discussed it in Pak Tin Community Hall. There has been a lot of discussions on activity rooms in 2011, and it was decided that conference rooms or small activity rooms are now increased to 3. There is a partition from floor to ceiling with sound insulation, with noise insulation for 2 groups to use the room at the same time. And we have separate access to the stage. If the stage is not needed, then the stage can be partitioned for a different group to use it. We use Tuen Mun. There are 10 community halls. One was commissioned on the 1st of July last year. And if we refer to the utilization rate of small activity rooms is about 44%. We have weighed up all the different uses. This is appropriate. Dr. Fernando Zhang, I'm concerned about barrier-free access. Just now, the HAD said that there will be a ramp for the stage in the community hall. Is it a permanent one or is it makeshift? Director for ASD, is a permanent ramp. Dr. Zhang, the ramp leads to backstage and the stage, front stage, yes? Yes. On the 7th floor, there is some communal area and also a sky garden for members of the public. And I would like to ask, is it barrier-free? That is, wheelchair users can get to the sky garden without difficulties. There is a lift. The lift will go straight to the 7th floor. So when it comes to public space, on each floor, they are accessible by wheelchair users. Right. Then that is very good. Because that is something that wheelchair users find difficult in the past. And I noticed there is a barrier-free entrance. Is it shared by other members of the public, or is it the case that other members of the public will use some other entrance, and this is mainly for wheelchair users? Yes, it's used by members of the public as well. So members of the public will mainly use which entrance? If you look at Annex 3, there is a plan showing it. So it's on the other side of the building. If you refer to enclosure 3, you'll see several arrows. The blue ones depicts entrances used by members of the public. One in green is a barrier-free entrance. Dr. Zhang, I understand. I know that you are at the final stage when it comes to the design. What is ideal is that there should be a common access shared by wheelchair users and members of the public, so that they will look like they are using the same entrance, because we don't want wheelchair users to have to use a separate entrance that is not generally used by members of the public. And I hope you would pay attention to this in your design, because that seems to be the case. When we further the design, we will take that into account. Yes. Can you at least visually blend the barrier-free entrance with the entrance for other members of the public? Mr. Tony Zhe, thank you. I support this project, and I hope that this will commence as soon as possible. I see from the paper that the design and contract management is done by internal resources. And I'm sure there are special characteristics in the design of this complex. The director said that it will be a no-frill design, a basic design, and material used. I hope they will maybe choose to put some character into it. I noticed that the multi-purpose room and the table tennis room will be about 6 meters from floor to ceiling. I hope that the design when it comes to the height of each floor will not be too imposing, because the future use of the room may change. Maybe table tennis is no longer popular, they will be turned into something else. Please take that into account. Don't limit yourself because the ceiling height is too short. Maybe it's too late to talk about the design. Perhaps in the future, when it comes to government complex, you give opportunities for young designers, say by organizing competitions. Maybe for the entire project, it will be difficult for smaller designing companies to take up, but if it's for individual facilities, young designers may have the resources to do it. It will foster a sense of belonging. Director for architectural services. We've heard members' views. We will have basic, pragmatic design with some innovation. Mr. Tse mentions about ceiling height. That is to have a ceiling height that will incorporate flexibility. Please respond to that. We will discuss with user departments, say the LCSD, about the possibility of making it multi-purpose. If we increase the ceiling height, it will have an impact on the project cost. Mr. Tse, well, apart from the building height itself, and if you use 2 to 3 meters for say pipes or vents, then is not properly used. If you don't pay attention to making better use of space for pipes and vents, then the usable space will be reduced. I hope that you will keep the net height to a certain height, say 6 meters. Yes, we will take that into account. We will minimize the space used by E&M facilities. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I would like to ask about the plot ratio, whether it is exhausted for this site, and what is the usual PR for government sites like this. Last time we were talking about the Pak Tin Community Hall, and we were told that they cannot stack more floors on it. Can you tell us your policy? How do you decide which departments will be accommodated under the same roof to respond to the district need for facilities? And it said in the paper that there is a collection of rainwater for irrigation. Will you collect grey water as well? Because you will have to wait for rainy days to collect rainwater. But you can collect water from washing basin. Would there be a grey water recycle system?
建築署署長。
Three questions. Director of ASD. Yes, I'll take the question about the PL and also the collection of grey water. In the OEZP, the plot ratio or the site coverage is 75%. And we have fully utilized this 75%. And for height restriction, under the OEZP is no more than 8 stories, and our current design is 8 stories. And for recycling of rainwater, we have facilities on the rooftop for irrigation of green of plants within the building. And as for treatment of grey water, it is not included in this item. Another question is the mechanism to decide what government departments can be put in the same government complex. Is there a mechanism for, say, departments to bid? Anyone? Mr. Choi. Chairman. As far as this project is concerned, how do we maximize the plot ratio? We will invite the director of LCS and other departments to say whether they want to house any facilities in this government complex. The Immigration Department, the Hong Kong Post, and SWD will be here. And after these facilities are provided, the PR is already fully utilized, and is usually the invitation is by the planning department. The parameters such as site coverage and construction height were not too familiar because we usually hear the term plot ratio. I'd like to know whether for government departments these parameters are used instead. If this is indeed the case, can you give us some information to facilitate our understanding? And the administration likes to say that there isn't enough room to provide community services. If the PR is not fully utilized, I'd like to know whether it is the government's concerns or the department's concerns responsibility. All right, Director of ASD, you do not use a common language we understand or we hear often, such as 4.5 or 5. Within the government, we, the ASD, is responsible for design, and we will work it together with the planning department. The PD will give us a PR for reference, and if there are already restrictions in the ORD or OZD, such as the site coverage, this is already controlled. We will tell the planning department the PR were able to do within these constraints. As for whether we will fully maximize a site, it's not just the PD and ASD's responsibility. The government agency, property agency, has a role to play. It will see whether for a particular site the potential is fully utilized, and we need to have the GPA's clearance as well. Well, please give us a supplementary information, given that it's so difficult to find sites to house necessary facilities. Yes, please, supplementary information. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. First, I speak to strongly support this project because, as said in papers 4 and 5 of the paper, there is a great demand for sports and recreational facilities in this area, and there is a great urgency for the project to go ahead. And if there is a new government complex, there can be better service delivery to the public by the Hong Kong Post, SWD, and Immigration Department. So there is a great need for the building to be constructed. Secondly, I've been working as adjudicators in building competition in Hong Kong. And I truly feel that government facilities are now able to discharge their achieved functions as well as very good green features. Take a government complex in Hong Kong, To Kwa Wan's example, there is a rooftop garden as well as vertical greening. And they've been very well thought. They are very well thought out, well-planned facilities to serve the public. And it's also an education process. These green features are excellent experience and opportunity for education to students and young people. So I'm sure ASD can do it without extra costs. Of course, green features in government buildings are already necessary features, so I'm sure they will take care of this. And my personal experience with community halls is there is no temporary storage for performers. Now I am a music fan, and in the course of my public office, I always frequently go to backstage of community halls. Very often handbags and personal properties are stacked up because there is no storage for them. I hope there can be better planning so that performers do not have time, do not have to take care of their personal belongings when performing. Director of ASD, are you going to reply first? Thank you, Dr. Low, for your views. Yes, we will review the outcome of a project, and we will consider the views of users as well as councillors. Are there storage facilities here? Thank you. In newly designed community halls, we have storage facilities. It will be inside the changing room or the makeup room for both male and female performers. And as far as I understand, for existing community halls, district councils will gradually add storage facilities using Minor Works Projects Fund. Let me supplement. Well, there may be such facilities, but you have to have better designed lockers. If it is a very traditional padlock, sometimes it is not easy. I think you should think of something like a safe in hotel rooms. Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you. I also support this paper. Yes, I share the concerns of members on energy conservation and green features. I'd like to ask whether the facilities are family friendly. For instance, the ratio between female and public toilets, there are washing basins and water closets for kids in particular, any nursing rooms, for instance, because families use these facilities very frequently, and I hope that we can have family-friendly facilities here to set a good example for commercial buildings. Thank you. Director of ASD, any family user any family-friendly facilities here? For nursing rooms, it is already included. In different departments, we have nursing rooms for parents to use. As for female and public toilets, with more cubicles for ladies than men. and the ratio will be no less than 3:1. Washing basins and water closets for kids, yes, is already planned for. So in your design, you do have facilities for kids. And the nursing room, I'd like to know whether it is independent of the female's washroom. It's independent with a size of 7.5 kilometers, and the ratio of female to male cubicles 3:1. The latest design is 1:1.5. I'd like to know whether yours is even better. Well, 1:1.5 is a calculation is the ratio adopted for users in our design, but when I say 3:1, it is the ratio for cubicles. So can you predict that the possibility of long queues in female bathrooms will be rather unlikely? 1:1.5 is a ratio of female and male and female users. For the ratio 3.1, that is the ratio of cubicles. So why don't you put it more simply? Is it better than the 1.15 statutory requirements? Yes, we're a little bit better than statutory requirements. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. I've always heard people say that there aren't enough parking spaces, and therefore government buildings should provide more parking spaces, because the government complex will bring circulation, but there is not enough parking spaces. I'd like to know whether PR would include underground structures, basement space. Director of AST, yes, that will be taken into account. Oh, even underground space. How come for Pacific Place, the basement space was not counted into the PL? People in Taipo are complaining. Yesterday they came to us complaining that there weren't enough parking spaces. Why don't you consider opening up the basement space? I don't think that would affect feng shui. Have you got any underground or basement development here? Not if we look at the plan. Director. If we add a basement car park, the construction cost would escalate a lot, and with longer construction time. You don't have to tell us that, we know it. But I don't go to Tuen Mun frequently. I only play football from time to time. But this is happening in Taipo, and let me remind you. And I think you're just paying the debt you promised. That in your HK PSG, or rather, under Hong Kong PSG, you don't have enough facilities here, sports facilities here. It's strange. You have 2 basketball courts, 2 volleyball courts, and 8 badminton courts, but only 1 table tennis court. How come there are so few table tennis courts? LCSD, please. Why is there only 1 table tennis room? My apologies. Table tennis room. Mr. Choi. We consulted the Tuen Mun District Council for facilities to be provided here. Now, although there is only 1 table tennis room, but in a multi-purpose arena, where necessary, we can always put table tennis tables there, and even to host a competition there. Understood. But the utilization rate is quite high for the multi-purpose arena. You are saying that if the arena is empty, then it can be used for playing table tennis. Is it really feasible? Director. Well, all arenas are multi-purpose to give us flexibility. For instance, if we want to host a table tennis competition, of course cannot be done in ordinary table tennis room. And at time slots, where there is a demand for table tennis facilities, we do this in many sports centers. We provide table tennis tables to meet their demand.
Is it really the case to use the arena for table tennis? And I want to ask about D, one children's playroom. Only one? So few? Aren't children stakeholders? You ask them to play in the arena too? We have to... It's a balancing exercise when it comes to different facilities. There are indeed many different facilities that are in demand. Children's playroom is one of the facilities we will provide. If there are no other questions, yes, Mr. Tuen Mun. One children's playroom. Based on what? Did you make this judgment? You do need to explain yourself. Mr. Choi. As to what facilities to be provided, we consulted the district council about the type of facilities and the quantity. We base our judgment on the views of the district council. Understand? So you listen to the district council, the Tuen Mun district council, right? We'll ask lawmakers from Tuen Mun to tell us whether that is the case. You are a government official. You cannot lie. You say that Tuen Mun District Council said that one children's playroom is enough. I finally understand. There is no preconceived ideas. You consulted, and then this is the views you received. Tell me the truth, Mr. Choi. According to the existing mechanism when it comes to facilities, including facilities in the sports center, we consult the district council. I understand. So you now confirm that the district council said so. Right. Then I have to ask the district council. I'm always criticized for not thinking about children, but myself. Oh, yeah, I give you the credit because you are a civil servant, so I assume that you are telling the truth. If not, you're in trouble. I'll put this to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think for members present and have voted, majority support this proposal. So proposal is endorsed. Next is item 2. Head 705 Civil Engineering, PWSC 2014-15-39, 180 DR Development of Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment Treatment and Recycling Facility. Members are asked to upgrade this project to Cat A at an estimated cost of 548.6 million in money of the day prices. And on the 28th of November 2011 and the 28th of April 2014, the Environmental Affairs panel was consulted. You will find the deliberation of members in the panel in front of you. We have government officials from the Environment Bureau and the Environmental Protection Department. Who is to take us through this paper? Under Secretary. Now I will give a brief introduction. Well, it started in 2010 because there was a public consultation. And the conclusion was that we had to develop a facility, waste electrical and electronic equipment. The administration from then on started preparation work. We have completed the tender exercise on the 3rd of April. The tender exercise closed. I hope that we will get your support to submit this to the FC. As the chairman said, we've been to the panel recently. Next Monday, we will go to the Environmental Affairs panel to explain the bill. With your support, the bill will be introduced to Let's Go shortly. Thank you, Mr. Ho. Thank you. I support this funding application. However, the Labour Party has been asking the administration about how many direct and indirect job or posts created. This work has been taken up by some community organizations, and they are actually operating. Will the operation of the district bodies be moved over to the facility smoothly, or is it the case that you are going to take away the resources? So I would like to ask, first of all, how many jobs will be created? Last year we went to Nordic countries to learn about treatment of facilities by turning them into gas. And that is one of the ways to treat waste. Of course, it can't compare to an incinerator which deals with 3,000 tons a day. But when it comes to dealing with items with heavy metal content or weight or gasification is an appropriate way. So in relation to this facility, will there be a small scale operation for gasification of or is it the case that in the future, if they decide to do it, then they will have to start from scratch by identifying sites first? When it comes to through the Conservation and Environment and Conservation Fund, there is a small operation that we're learning. There is automation in the plant to deal with the recycling work. We would like to now target smaller items. We will also collect these electrical and electronic equipment for donation maybe. We reckon that with the facility in place, there will be 200 to 300 jobs created. What about gasifying the waste? And as to whether there will be future development, and that also depends on whether what technology will be used, because we will have to let this facility start operating first. And if there is a need to increase capacity, we will have to then consider what technology to use. I don't think we need to think about the technology yet, because there is already capacity for expansion. What members need to focus on is the future development of recycling of we. When it comes to job creation, I hope that I can get some exact figure. Just now I heard that there will be 200 to 300 jobs. So there is a margin of error of 50%. When it comes to setting up of refuse collection point for these wastes, there has been strong oppositions from the district. Perhaps you will better explain it to the community. It will be further explained later. Yes. Mr. Gary Chan, the DAB supports this project. We believe that the treatment plant will help with environmental protection and recycling. It will also alleviate the pressure on our landfills. Well, what I'm concerned about is the capacity of the facility. At maximum, it can only handle 30,000 tons. But when it comes to this kind of waste, annually we're talking about 70,000. So with the expansion, it can only deal with 50,000. So what about the remaining 20,000 tons? Because the maximum capacity is 57 tons. You think that the levy scheme of we will reduce the amount of waste to under the maximum capacity of the facility? To resolve the problem? I remember where during the discussion in the panel we were concerned that when it comes to dismantling the electronic or electrical equipment, some toxic substance, say for example lead, will be released. You have to make sure that the site itself and nearby residents will not be affected, because there's a possibility of contamination of underground water and the soil of the site. You failed to fully explain to us, and we were not happy with your answer. Would you maybe give us more information? Yes, there is a capacity of 30,000 tons a year. If there is a need, it can be increased to 57 tons. In the past few years, we have been monitoring the total volume generated is about 70,000. We account for 85% of total waste. If there is no capacity provided by the private sector, this alone can still deal with it. For smaller electrical and electronic items, we encourage members of the public to have them recycled through some district organizations. When it comes to dismantling the items, there are legislative requirements to regulate them. If toxic substance may be generated, it has to be dealt with in accordance with the law. And in relation to the producer responsibility scheme, We will strengthen our regulation of the licensees. There will be requirements on the technology and the condition of the facilities. This particular facility is in the Eco Park. So we have already considered the possible impact on, say, underground water.
So what about the gap of 13,000 tons? What about the waste charging scheme on electronic waste? Do you think you can narrow down this gap of 13,000 tons? Well, we haven't done any assessment, but I believe the so-called 17,000, among the 17,000 tons, they do need all to be dismantled. Some item may be reusable, and even if we talk about 70,000, I believe this plant would be able to cope. And supplement. Please switch on the microphone for Ms. Anissa Wong. Thank you. Am I coming through? Certainly. Thank you for your question. We believe the production of wheat and the capacity of the facility, well, is such that, of course, these are just assessments or projections. We hope the facility can provide a facility that is environmental friendly. In fact, in the market, there are other treatment facilities dealing with large weed from commercial organizations. So we believe this facility's capacity should be able to cope with local production. Of course, would be able to deal with the demand 100%. Perhaps not, nor is it in overseas. At least it is a step forward. We have the producer responsibility scheme, and if it is found that other facilities are needed, we'll see how we can enhance the capacity depending on the actual needs. Dr. Kenneth Chen, I support this item because we are very backward when it comes to a producer responsibility scheme. We must catch up. Guangdong, Guiyuan, Guiyuan town is the biggest place for dealing with such they have over 100,000 population there, and 70% of the children there are found to exceed their found that the blood has exceeded the lead content or limits. So in Hong Kong, we should tackle our own waste. However, there are a few follow-up questions. You intend to amend the waste disposal ordinance or legislation, and in our import and export legislation, you may want to amend the legislation to catch up with international convention requirements. You believe they were able to cope with 85% of the production. What about the remaining 50%? Is it as a matter of policy you don't want to monopolize the market? Because this plant has a recurrent expenditure of 200 million. You have to pay for the capital cost, and the contract is for 10 years. I think you have more or less monopolized the market. The rest will be left for NGOs and small and medium-sized treatment facilities. So this 15%, if it is not regulated under your legislation, if this 15% is not regulated, you adopt wait-and-see attitude, how can you ensure that we are able to tackle all locally generated weed in Hong Kong, so that there will be no export of weed to other places, because this 15% will not be regulated in the way they are handled. Yes, this is about the design of the producer responsibility scheme and also the development. Since its inception, we propose to adopt a gradual approach for the RPS, and the question is where should be the starting point. So for 4 kinds of electronic products and computer will account for about 85% of we, and that is the starting point. And regarding the 15,000 tons, we believe we're talking about things like irons and microwaves, of small electrical household appliances. So we focus on electronic devices and computers first. So we want to draw a line here and accumulate some experience first. However, we will adopt a 2-pronged approach. The facility will provide the basic capacity to deal with we, and if there is private investment in the recycling industry, there is still room for them to join the sector. And using our Conservation and Environment Fund, we can subsidize or we can support other operators. And when the PRS is renewed, we will see whether it can be expanded. Now, this 15% left, accounting for over 10,000 tons, you have to strictly regulate the process and also the regulation and also the way mode of operation, because this is about safety and our environment. Thank you. Mr. Tony C. Thank you, Chairman. I support the development of treatment and recycling facilities. However, we are concerned as to the improvement to our environment this facility can bring. Members talked about the capacity of this facility and the total generation here. Can you please give us more details? And this is a design, build, and operate project. On what basis the government has gone for this approach? Because there are pros and cons for BOT project, and the contract term is 10 years. Why 10 years? How much improvement this facility will bring to our environment? The crux of the matter is most we is exported to overseas countries, probably to developing countries for substandard recycling or dismantling, leading to serious pollution that may lead to regional or even wider issues. So in our public consultation, the mainstream view is for us to progressively implement the PRS, and locally generated we should be handled here so that we will not affect other places. We note that internationally there is a tightening trend for trade of such items. So if we do not act quickly when the regulation is so tight that we can't export such products anymore, then they will all go to our landfills. The design of our facility will be a BOT model. If we split the design and operation stages, there may be gaps and problem in interface, making the product rather counterproductive. So there are overseas technical producers or providers involved in the tendering exercise. So we believe a BOT is a good approach. Why 10 years? The contract is for 10 years because we believe there may be changes or improvement in the technology. If the contract term is too long, then towards the end of the contract, perhaps our methods will be outdated. So 10 years will help us to catch up with new developments. Mr. Xi, because if the contract is 10 years, I may have the impression that the facility can only last for 10 years. The use of BOT will make it difficult for you to change the contractor during the tenure of the contract. Have you ever consulted experts or bidders when it comes to the contract term of 10 years? I believe this 10-year term can reflect the expectations because in the pre-screening stage we received 12 bids. So this shows that the market supports or agrees to our approach. Dr. Lowai Kit Kwok. For this recycling and treatment facility, we've been discussing with the industry and the relevant authorities for many years. 10 years ago, I went on an industry delegation to Japan to see their facility there. So we very much look forward to early implementation, and therefore I'm not going to ask any question at this meeting. Even 10 years ago, we knew that it was very important to have a proper treatment and recycling facility because these products contain many useful and valuable components such as heavy or precious metals. If we dump that at our landfills, this is very damaging to our environment, and I think they can be a new source of precious metals for us, and therefore the BPA heavily supports this, and so does the industry. In our visit to Japan, we saw that in Japan they were able to achieve over 90% in the recycling of such products. As time passes, not only has technology improved, such as the recovery of valuable materials from the printed circuit boards. And they have also recycling lines for recycling of printers and other types of electronic products. I think what was asked by some members was correct. What about materials or products not covered by this facility? Since we have got this facility, then with technological development and market development, it would be easier for us to have other facilities for treating such products, and I think it is a natural development as well. While the process can help us to recover materials, the costs are also high. If there is no investment from the government, if you think that this is a business opportunity and the market would tap into it, this is just wishful thinking. And here the government is willing to invest into this facility as something good, and we want it to be implemented as soon as possible. All right, you have this facility for but what about other materials and other green industries? How can they develop in Hong Kong? They really need assistance from the government. Don't just pay lip service to this. The green industries are very concerned about this. We have various ways to deal with waste in Hong Kong, but the industry cannot start because of a lack of assistance from the government. For the sake of our environment and for the sake of people's livelihood, I think we should do it as soon as possible. And I'm sure such a facility will get the support of legislators. And of course, we will vet all such proposals very carefully. You don't expect a reply? Well, as I said, I don't really need any. Enough questions have been asked. Ms. Claudia Mo.
When it comes to the development of this facilities, well, of course, we will not object to it. When it comes to this WEEE, you refer to computers, and it includes tablets, right? But mobile phones are excluded. Is that right? Well, because a smartphone nowadays is actually a mini computer. The facilities will process products under the producer responsibility scheme. When it comes to computers, it refers to laptop, desktop, tablets, printers, monitors, and scanners. Well, there is a second-hand market for phones in Hong Kong. So compared to other products, which are mainly taken apart, that is a different way. So it doesn't include mobile phones. I agree. If you include mobile phones, it will send the wrong message. That it won't go to waste. It will be taken apart and reused, and people will think that if you discard a phone, it's not waste. I'm concerned about the toxic substance in the process of taking the items apart. I know that there will be safety measures in place because it's done in the eco park. In my generation, it's taken us a very long time to learn that asbestos is actually harmful to one's health. It has done great damage to those in the construction sector. And previously, we thought that DDT was a good thing. But now we learned that it's damaging to the environment. So what are these toxic substances? Lead, mercury, and what else? And how do you protect the staff? Assistant Director. Will there be potentially toxic substances that are not currently dealt with? I'll defer to Dr. Lam. When it comes to the toxic items, is the CRT, glass that contains lead, and also the LCD CCFL in LED TVs, and also coolants in refrigerators. When they are taken to the facility, then they will have to be processed manually first. That is in relation to these LCD monitors, CRTs, and coolants before they are put in, before the remaining items are put in into a crusher. And they will be properly dealt with in accordance with the law. They will either be transported to overseas facilities or local facilities for further processing. You're not concerned that there will be ones that are left out? Well, my point actually is about protection of the workers. So they will be in protective gear, is that right? I think Ms. Mo's question is that There may be items that you now don't know that that they are toxic, but in the future you may learn that they're toxic. Well, if in the future there are new toxic items identified, well, there are statutory requirements with the handling of toxic substance. The facility will have to meet the legal requirements. There is a stringent regulation. We also have the producer responsibility for WEEE. It will be introduced to the electrical shortly. The facilities dealing with WEEE will have to be regulated. And as to potentially toxic substance, well, we will introduce a relevant regulatory regime and when we learned about it. Of course, when it comes to toxic substance, you promise us that it will be properly dealt with, right? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, according to your document, it says that it can handle 30,000 tons of WEEE. If necessary, it can be increased to 57,000. And you also told us that some will be transported elsewhere. Is that the current practice? We'll make arrangements in accordance with the need of the substance. Say, for example, they are taken apart and turned for some into waste plastic, and they will be sold as raw material. For some parts, they may contain toxic substance. If we don't have the technology to deal with it, then they will be moved to other facilities that have the facility. Say, for example, rechargeable batteries, that they will be moved to Japan or Korea for further processing. We're talking about a small amount. I now understand what you're saying. The 57,000 tons. How did you arrive at this figure? Assistant Director. The annual capacity of 30,000 is based on the assumption on the number of hours operating, the number of operating hours daily. And if they work overtime, then the capacity will be increased. You're talking about the capacity only. What about the 5 types of waste? You think 57,000 tons is enough, right? Assistant Director. We've taken into account the annual amount of waste generated in the past few years. It's a total of 70,000 tons, and the 5 types of WEEE accounts for 15%. There are smaller operators in the private market. As some may invest in new plants, but we see that still we need to support this by having a large-scale facility in Eco Park. We have designed the capacity to be 30,000. If the demand increases, say for example for these WEEE, and if investment in the private market is not as high as we expected, and we can increase the capacity to 57,000 tons. We will monitor the annual figure and adjust it, and we will consider adjusting it if necessary. Mr. Leung, the contract is 10 years, right? So you have taken into account the fact that the total amount will not be increased, right? 57,000 for in 5 or 10 years, right? We believe that is sufficient. Ms. Chen Yuen-han to be followed by Mr. Paul Dare. We've talked about it for many years. Before I left LegCo, it was plastic bags, and we asked about the 5 types of WEEE, and now finally it's here. I believe that everyone will support it. Well, we have the highest circulation rate of mobile phones in the world. Well, the government have to take responsibilities, so should Hong Kong people. I would like to talk about 2 things. We support earmarking land. I believe that there will be a bills committee established next week. But if there is any mistake, it's just like elderly services. But they shifted the responsibility to the private market, and we've seen cases of elderly people being abused. We support giving them land. You have to be very careful in each stage. I've read a book about recycling industry overseas. The soil is contaminated. It happens on the mainland as well. Children suffered. So we have to be very careful at every stage. We have the duty to ask the administration, do you adopt the highest standard, or you just haphazard? We're talking about a reasonable fee. Elderly service is the responsibility of the administration, but they shifted the responsibility to the private market, and as a result, elderly people are abused. We support it, but are you ready? I'm talking about each stage. Don't contaminate the soil. I read the book, and then I learned that the birds have stopped singing in the forest because they've been harmed. So what are your preparations? So the assistant director, will what is described in the book happen in Hong Kong? A lonely spring? Well, as to whether we rely on private investment in the market or government assistance. Of course, we have outsourced some of these services. Of course, we will regulate their operation. Private operators will have to hold a license, and there are requirements at different stages. And I'd like to say that under the producer responsibility scheme, we encourage members of the public to recycle. And there is also the recycling fee because we hold producers responsible. My question is not answered. What about regulation? Are you ready? Because there are so many cases, and I I don't know. Well, you now ask us for funding. Under Secretary, some members ask about the details and future regulation to prevent anything from happening. But this is a DBO contract. We have to come back to the LegCo to report to you. Members can visit the facility. So through the contract, we have which is quite a stringent approach. You can rest assured that the chance of mistakes is quite small, and on top of that, we report to you.
Mr. Posse, thank you, Chairman. Para 5 gives us figures. That is the production of about 70 tons of wheat locally every year. I'd like to know whether that covers mobile phones. Assistant Director, that includes mobile phones, but we believe the majority of this 70,000 will be the we covered in this scheme. So 85% covering the 5 items. I'd like to know the percentage contributed by mobile phones. Well, mobile phones will not be included in that 85%. As I said, mobile phones are not regarded as computer products. And I do not have the number for mobile phones. That means mobile phones will only be part of that 50% not covered. So even if in the future mobile phones cannot be exported to the mainland, it will not be affected, right? My question relates to the operator. For the cruise terminal, in the first round, the government was unsuccessful in the tendering exercise, so the government built the facility before transferring it to the contractor. And then the current contractor criticized this approach, and that design and operation should be merged into one step. For this, are you going to build it first before finding a an operator? Have you done any consultation? For instance, for the facility, will you leave out some important items for the operator to fill in the future? This is a DPO, so design, build, and operate. So we are just subsidizing the capital cost, right? Ms. Chen, no, I'm not. I don't want to ask any question. I just want this paper to be approved quickly. All right. As you wish. If there are no further questions, I'll now put this item to the vote. Will those in favor of the paper, hands up, please. From what I can observe, all members present are in support of the paper, so I don't have to ask whether there is anyone against the paper. My judgment is that the paper is unanimously supported and approved. Third item, Head 703 Buildings, Quarters, Internal Security, 65JA, construction of rank and file quarters for Customs and Excise Department in Yaoyuan Village Road, Changguan-O. This paper seeks to recommend to the FC the upgrading of this item at an estimated cost of $604.8 million in money of the day prices. On the 18th of March 2014, the security panel was consulted. In principle, the panel supported submitting this paper to the PWSC for discussion, and the report has been tabled for members' information. Present for this discussion, we have officers from the Security Bureau as well as the Customs and Excise. Anyone from the administration to introduce the paper to us? Ms. Mimi Lee, thank you. The disciplined forces are important forces of the government, and it is an established policy to provide married members of our disciplined forces to provide quarters where resources permit. This will address their housing need, and it will also help to maintain the morale of members of our disciplined forces. There are about 30,000 married officers of our disciplined forces eligible for quarters. However, we are about 27% short when it comes to the provision of quarters. And the situation is particularly bad for the Customs and Excise Department. The shortfall is about 40%, and the average waiting time is about 5 years. If we do not do something, then the situation would continue to worsen. So in 2014, the CE proposed in its policy address that construction of quarters for 8 disciplined forces should be speeded up, and our intention is to provide more than 2,200 quarters to relieve the pressure. We are now proposing to build married RNF officers' quarters to echo the policy address. We are talking about a 19-story quarters block with a construction floor area of 12,000 odd meters for provision of 136 DQ units for 300 odd occupants. So we propose to start construction in June this year for completion in January 2018. The estimated cost is $604 million. We fully agree that there must be strict budget control covering the construction costs and also other associated costs. We have taken into account special factors such as the cost in price index for raw materials and labor. We will closely monitor the progress of the project and take necessary measures to ensure or to prevent project budget overrun or project slippage. To take care of the environment, we will adopt the usual energy conservation, green and recycled features, such as the use of photovoltaic systems and also collection system for rainwater. Just within a few minutes walk, there is an MTR station and public bus services. We believe the traffic infrastructure will be able to cope with the new population. As in the past, we will adopt a scoring scheme in the allocation of the new units that is based on the service years and the number of members in the household, and so on and so forth. We will allocate the flats. So the longer the service, then higher the priority. In 2012, we consulted the relevant district council and panel. They all support this. We hope that this project can commence as soon as possible to provide relief to the acute shortage of quarters. Now there are 3 members, and if each have 5 minutes, then we need 15 minutes. If we extend the meeting by 15 minutes, I think we will be able to cope with this paper. All right. Mr. Lee Chek-yan, Ms. Cheng Yan, all right, 4 minutes each. That will be 20 minutes. According to this clock, is 12:38. After 5 members have all asked questions, it will take us to 12:59 still. We still will be able to cope. Let's shorten it to 3 minutes. No, 4 minutes would be better. First, is there an objection to my extending the meeting time to 1? No, then we start. Mr. Gary Fan. Chairman, I support the project. And as a district councillor of Sai Kung, I'd like to say that the Sai Kung District Council would like to see the Yao Yu 1 quarters to be completed as soon as possible. And in our district, it is our observation that there is illegal parking near the quarter block, and there is a shortfall of parking spaces. Once the project is completed, there will even be a greater demand for parking spaces, and illegal parking may even be more serious. So how do you address this problem? Can you provide more parking spaces in response to the local needs? There are two parameters for the provision of car parking spaces. First is according to the traffic assessment done by the TD, and second, the ratio of units to parking spaces. So for this project, we adopt our consistent requirements. I appreciate your concern because the same has been expressed by the District Council, and we have considered the possibility of providing more parking spaces. But our view is, according to experience, there is sufficient parking spaces in our C and E quarters in the past for use by occupants. And we hope that future occupants will make use of the convenient public transport services provided. Of course, in the long term, if you ask how we can address illegal parking and inadequacy of parking spaces, I think it is an issue wider than the current project, and I believe the District Council will take care of their concerns. All right, next, Dr. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, Chairman. I understand the acute demand for quarters by the Customs and Excise Department, so I support this, but I would like to express the concerns of the residents there too. Because of insufficient parking spaces, illegal parking has caused serious obstruction at night in particular, and I understand it is rather difficult to provide more spaces here, but I hope the Customs and Excise can coordinate with the government departments as far as possible to add more parking spaces nearby as far as possible to address the demands of the local community. I believe the District Council has discussed this. And at Yao Yu 1 village, I have met with the government departments many times, and there is no solution for this problem yet. I don't want this to be in the way of the construction, but if this is not resolved, even if the project is completed, you can expect more conflicts and complaints. So this must be resolved. DS, parking spaces again. Thank you, Ms. Quat. C&E officers mainly serve in boundary crossing points, and usually no parking spaces are provided for them. So according to experience, the construction of quarters block there may not necessarily increase the demand for parking spaces, but we will discuss with the C&E department when necessary. They may have shuttle buses for the officers to reduce the need for their own private cars, but we will take into account Dr. Quat's views, and in the long term, how there can be more parking spaces available. I believe the relevant departments will work with the District Council to address that. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. Two parts to my questions. First, I'd like to know whether you have maximized the PR of this site. because according to my calculation, the plot ratio is slightly over 8. Have you really maximized the plot ratio? The block will only have 19 stories. Since there is a great demand for quarters, and if the site is not fully utilized, it's a waste of resources. Secondly, to share my experience, there is indeed a great demand for parking spaces for most disciplined forces headquarters. You just have to conduct a tour in Wong Tai Shin and see for yourself. And you can see that many of them have to park their cars on the roadside, and that is illegal parking. You can expect that in Yaoyu one village there is already such an acute problem for parking spaces. Now I don't know, I don't know other possibility, but for other disciplined forces there is a great demand for parking spaces.
So I'm concerned whether there is sufficient parking spaces. I would defer to the director for ASD about the plot ratio. It's 2.5 in PR, usable PR. Why is it so low? This is government, this is a GIC site, is it not? Let me explain. There are 3 constraints. 1, the plot ratio. 2, the usable area of the site, and height restriction. The PR is 2.5 and we have fully utilized it. When it comes to site coverage, is 34% and we have used 31.4%. And that's a height restriction of 86 meters and we have used 82 meters. So these constraints restrict our use. The planning department said that there is a huge demand on land. So very often there is an increase of 20% on top of the stated plot ratio. There is a huge shortage of CNE quarters. Why is it not increased? The planning department will consider the traffic impact, the population in the area, and also the impact on the environment. Have you done anything to make most out of the site? 2.5 PR is the figure given to us by the planning department. I'm afraid the ASD can't answer you because they are limited by the development parameter. You perhaps can ask the planning department to answer your question when it goes to the FC. Well, the development parameter of a number of projects we've discussed today is very different from what we have in mind. So I wonder whether there is any room for adjustment so that more CNE officers will have a home. Well, if this is endorsed, Mr. Wu asked for this item to be voted on separately in the FC. Ms. Chen Yinhan, we support this project, and my questions are similar to that of other members. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with district councils. And it's very often found that there is a serious shortage of parking spaces because you have failed to take into account the need of the districts. We're talking about over 100 flats with so few parking spaces. So I think that the administration has neglected the need for more parking spaces, including Lei Yu Kok. Well, if there is such a view from the district council, then why can't they think about this? I agree with Mr. Wu Chi-wai about the plot ratio, but I understand that there are restrictions. But if they change it, it will be delayed. Land is precious. With a plot ratio of 2.5 is low. Well, I have this to say to the Development Bureau. If there is precious, but land is precious, maybe they should increase. Maybe they should do something about the plot ratio. I don't need an answer. Just now, Mr. Yang made a suggestion. Let's see if Ms. Chen and Mr. Wu will accept that. Well, we mentioned about taking this item out for separate voting, and then Mr. Yang said maybe we will decide after we have read their written reply. Maybe we'll see what their written reply say. Mr. Lee Chuk-yen, in relation to the parking spaces, there are actually a lot, but they are illegal ones. I was there yesterday and the day before. There are a lot of parking spaces, illegal ones. If you do not resolve this problem, there will be more. I went there to the same location 2 days in a row, and I found that there are lots of illegal parking spaces. Now, well, in March 2014, 2,243. So a shortage of 40%. And I heard 27%. How come the figure is different? Well, whether it's 40% or 27%, but we're talking about 130 flats. Not many people will be allotted one. What more can you do? Well, a lot of civil servants buy their own home. What about the housing benefits for the discipline service? Well, Yaoyuan estate is not right next to where CNE officers work, so it's different from correctional services officers. What about the housing benefits? Would that be better for CNE officers? Because they may be waiting for a long time, and in the end, it will be better for them to use housing allowance. Have you considered this as an alternative? We have about 30,000 married officers who are eligible for quotas. We have 22,000 flats, 70%. So as a whole, there's a shortage of 30% of all discipline services. I mentioned 40%, that is in relation to CNE officers, which is higher than others. In 2014, in the policy address, it was mentioned that more quarters should be constructed to alleviate the situation. There are 8 items that will be expedited. This Yaoyuan is the first of the 8. We hope that with all these projects in the pipeline, the situation will be better. In relation to housing allowance, if the rank and file officers of discipline services choose to take housing allowance, they will have to wait till they have worked for a number of years. It's only about several months, several $1,000s a month, and you have to first attain a certain length of service. There are other ways of assistance. There are different forms of assistance. Say, for example, they can apply for PRH units, but the quota is small. As a result, they may have to wait for longer than a member of the public. Well, if the officers live together, it will be easier for deployment. So providing quarters would be better, but it's a more expensive way. If that is the case, then why don't you increase allowance for rank and file officers so that they can buy their own flats, and they will have somewhere to live after they've retired? It will be cheaper for using $600 million only to accommodate 30 families. If you give them housing allowance by increasing the amount, it will be more attractive. We will follow this up. Mr. Ip Kok Him. The AB supports this project. In the security panel, support has been expressed. In paragraph 22, I would like to ask about environmental protection measures, energy conservation measures. There is energy conservation of 1.5%, but for other projects it's as high as 10.6%. Why is it so low? There are various features in different projects. This is a residential project, so when it comes to saving or conservation of air conditioning, it won't be as high, because if it's central heating, central air conditioning, it will be better. So the areas where we can conserve energy is lower. Ms. Sit Ho, I only need 1 minute. You spent $600 million on this to provide 130 flats. So each will cost you $4.5 million. If you pay that amount for them to buy a flat, then you don't even need to provide land. For a lot of rank and file officers, they don't get housing allowance because of the low salary. They might have worked for over 30 years, and when they retire, they don't have a place to live. Housing is a big problem for them. Will you turn quarters into a housing scheme so the rank and file officers will work hard for you, knowing that they will have a home to live in after they have retired? Perhaps Ms. Ho will follow this up in another meeting. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, just now you said that there are a number of other projects. Well, what about the use of plot ratio? Perhaps before this item is submitted to the FC, you will give me the information about the use of other sites. We hope that they will be fully used. Please pass this observation to the planning department. Mr. Yang, if there are no other questions, I will put this to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think that for members who have voted, most of them endorse this item is endorsed. We have dealt with 3 items. Judging by our flow, well, in relation to the government complex and the rank and file quarters in Yaoyu Wan, members may ask for them to be voted on separately. In relation to the WEEE facility, does any member want it to be voted on separately? Sorry, speakers off mic. Just now you mentioned that we should read the papers first before we decide. So we don't have to decide on this yet. We will wait for the paper about the land use and plot ratio. What about the WEEE? Any request to separate it? No? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.